Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the standoff here with Brad and Sanjay on a Wednesday evening. And we've got a fascinating week's worth of rugby league news to get through with you this evening. And thanks for joining us here on New Zealand Sport Radio. I'm joined every Wednesday at 8 p.m. here on Facebook by my fellow colleague, Brad Inger. Good evening, Brad.
Good evening, Sanjay, and good evening to all our listeners. There were some pretty good games this week, and playoff contenders are starting to reduce, so it's going to be a good show, I think.
Yes, I think so. I think that we've got like a few teams that have pretty much come out of the woodworks to sort of say that now, look, hey, we're working towards next year, and we've got a couple of other teams at the top of the ladder also just struggling a wee bit. So, no, we'll crack into that a little bit later on. Of course, here on Wednesday evening, we will get you the latest rugby league news, the top stories of the week. We'll go analyse round 16, have a look at round 17, and of course, we'll have a look at news from around the globe, including Super League and the women's game.
Yeah, definitely. So let's just crack into the top stories of the week. First story I think I want to talk about is Todd Payton reportedly signing a 3-year deal with the Cowboys. It hasn't been made official yet, but Cameron George has basically said that he's got the job. So he's kind of let it slip a little bit early, but I believe they were going to announce it today, but I haven't seen anything in the news yet. So I'd say it's coming soon. I think it's a good. I'm happy for him, and I'm hoping he does well there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that he always wanted this move back to Australia, back to North Queensland. I think that's what he was wanting more than stay here and live in New Zealand. So I'm not good on him, and we wish him all the best. Obviously, for the coming years, he's got a bit of work to do over there with the Cowboys, but I think that he'll be a good fit there. And let's see what he can do. He's worked wonders so far for this Warriors side, it has to be said, since Kearney's demise, but. You've got to put that a little bit down towards the personnel that he's working with as well. I think there's a lot of player spirit, the culture club, the culture at this club, is a little bit different, obviously. So yeah, there's definitely he's worked well with what he's had, to work in front of as well. I guess that if he can do that up there, then he will go a long way to getting them into a top 8 team over the next couple of years potentially.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's done himself great service with how the Warriors have been going. If you don't have that experience as a head coach and you get a performance like this out of a team that everyone in Australia wrote off, I think it makes your resume look quite glowing. So I think if the Warriors had kept going downhill, I don't think he would have got the job. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you say that because, I mean, hey, look, like they're a long shot to win the championship. But let's say they win the NRL championship and he was the interim coach and then he heads off to North Queensland. Boy, would he be going there with quite a bit of expectation. And, that's another thing. So, but hey, look, if he can do that, then, someone was actually asking the other day whether he's still a contender for Coach of the Year because he's an interim coach. I don't know. Do you know the answer to that, Brett?
I think he would still qualify. Because he's still a coach. If they would give it to him, I'm not sure.
Maybe we'll have a look into that and we'll come back to you next week and see. Perhaps if he has beaten the Eels by then, ladies and gentlemen, we could say, hey, he is well on the way to becoming the Coach of the Year. Hey, another news, we've got Tavita Pangai Jr. suspended by the Broncos for the rest of the season. But yeah, there's quite a few little restrictions on him if he is to return, Brad.
Yes, so he has been suspended without pay for the rest of this year, and he's been told he can return to the club next year if he fills in certain requests. And I've got the list of his requests that he has to do. He has to start a 12-month mentor program. Working with that mentor, he's got to get a job. He's also not allowed to participate in any social media and can't deal with the media at all unless it's been authorized by the Broncos. And if he fails any of those, they will rip up his contract. So there's a lot of rules for him. But I guess
there's a lot of conditions.
Yeah, I guess it shows how much he wants to stay with the Broncos, because you'd think if he wasn't that keen, he would just say, "Nah, I'm good," and rip up my contract and I'll go elsewhere. So
I
interesting to see.
Oh, definitely, because I imagine there'd be a few clubs chasing him. I'm not too sure of any at the present time, but do you know of any clubs that are chasing him at the moment or have had discussions with them? Because that might be another reason. Maybe is he a little bit unwanted after what's happened?
Possibly. I know there were rumors that the Warriors were interested, but it seems that the Warriors name gets thrown in whenever there's a player available at the moment. So I believe it was him and the Dragons were looking,
Yeah.
because the Dragons are obviously losing Tyson Frizzell to the Knights. So he would take that spot. But either that was all just speculation on the media's part, or he just didn't want to make that move.
Yeah, well, like you say, you will have to wait and see what happens with him, whether he stays at the Broncos under duress or whether he decides to go elsewhere. But like you did say, just quickly, I'll mention, what did you say the Warriors team was? The team that always goes for the people who want to come home to retire. Potentially, we could be looking at Benji Marshall on the bench, made in 2021. So watch this space. We'll get into that a little bit later on, folks. But another news, hey, look, Cameron Smith, he still hasn't made a decision yet. Oh, come on, mate. Like, make a decision so that the rest of the team can sort of make a decision as well, and other young players around you. I understand that he's probably had one of his best seasons in the game, I guess. So that's the other thing. I mean, if he'd had this kind of season at the start, you would be saying different things about him. But and hey, if he stays at Melbourne, he stays at Melbourne. He's got to make a decision. But it would be nice if he finally makes one.
Yeah, I know there was a bit on a few of the media shows they have during the week, there was a bit of an argument and disagreement about it, because some of the media is like, enough's enough, you've got to make a decision. And then others are on the side of he's earned enough respect for all his time to take his time. But you've got two other players at the Storm, and Harry Grant and Brandon Smith, whose careers are on the line.
I think if it goes, if he goes into, Brad, but if he goes, if he wants to look at the, making rugby league better, advancing the game of rugby league, and making Melbourne a stronger side for the next couple of years, then he certainly should be taking into consideration the fact that he's got these two younger guys champing at the bit, wanting to know what happens, so that they can make their decisions as well.
Yeah, definitely. And then more news. Sonny Bill was missing from Roosters training this week, but he's been named in the 17 to play the Raiders. So Sonny Bill is back, and we'll see how he goes.
Yeah, they're talking about giving him 30 minutes up the middle. They're not thinking that he's going to be playing on the edges of the ruck, coming back straight away. He's got to get used to the speed of the game. It has advanced somewhat since his previous stint in the NRL. So he's coming against some new rules as well, the 6 again rule. So the game is a little bit more quicker again. I'm sure Sunnyville will have no problem adapting. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see when he comes into the game. I have a feeling he'll come into the game maybe 10, 15 minutes before halftime.
Yeah,
yeah,
I think so. Yeah, I think they'll give him the middle of the game, I think, to have a go.
Absolutely. And we were talking about veterans of the game, Tigers veteran and long-term Kiwi stalwart Benji Marshall he's basically been told to look elsewhere going forward from 2021. And the unfortunate circumstance for Benji is that he found out through the media, 14 years at the club. He's a club legend, 250 plus games at the Tigers. So it's pretty disappointing when you hear that, that he found out through the media. And it does sort of show you that the divide within a rugby league organization, doesn't it, Brad? I mean, yes, you've got the players, the coaching staff, and the rest of it, but if the owners don't even communicate that to you, a 14-year-old veteran in person, I thought that was really disappointing.
Yeah, it's real. In my opinion, it's quite disrespectful of the Tigers to do it that way. I think he's done enough for the club to at least be told privately about the decision. I think it was a decision a lot of us thought would happen, that they would say this is the it. But he's playing really well. He's had a few patchy games. He's second in try assists for the NRL right now, and he finds out through the media that he's no longer there. And yeah, as you said, been there for 14 years. You think of the young guys in the Tigers club. How would they want to stick around if you look at a legend like Benji is getting treated like that? How are you going to be treated in your second year at the club?
Yeah, I guess that's something for those younger players to consider. But in terms of Benji, I think he might be a little bit further down the ladder than second for try assists. I heard a figure of something like 6th the other day, but I know that he moved up from that figure. But like what you're saying is he's been playing some good football, and he definitely wants to play in 2021. Still thinking that he's got something to offer. Talking about it on with other reporters, suggesting that, hey, look, it's definitely inside you when you know that it's time. That's what he's been told by other personnel, other players. Wayne Bennett as well. He's spoken to him and reached out to him about wanting to continue to play. So let's see what happens with Benji. Look, as far as him coming to the Warriors, I just don't think. I don't think that's a good idea personally. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think the Warriors need another. No disrespect to Benji, but another old half coming in. I think Cody and Chanel are showing some good form together. Let them stay there. Just checking now. Yeah, I was incorrect there. He's had 12 try assists, so he's sitting sixth.
Yeah, I thought it was
basically tied for fourth because there's like 3 other players on 12.
Yeah, no. So I guess you wouldn't mind seeing him come over. What would he do? He'd play a sort of a halfback 5'8" hooking spear, and that's probably what we don't want actually. But look, the Warriors haven't shown any interest either. I mean, Payton coming out and saying, "Hey, look, well, why would we get rid of Blake Green if we're going to bring in Benji Marshall? It just doesn't make sense." Yeah. So I don't think he's got anything here. Look, moving on, you've got some news about Huawei there, Brad.
Yeah, so Huawei has quit as the Raiders' major sponsor after nearly a decade. Due in their press release, they said it was due to the negative business environment towards the company in Australia. So Huawei's had a bit of strife as a business in Australia, and during this time, they don't really have the money. Basically, is how they were simplifying what they said. They're still going to be a sponsor. Instead of being on the front of the Raiders jersey, they're going to be put on the back. And they're basically similar to like the Vodafone Warriors situation where
going to have to find a major sponsor.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we'll keep you updated on that. I don't think it's too bad of news. I mean, the Raiders are a very successful franchise at the moment, making some good money over the last couple of years, particularly, so they should bounce back. We've got other news in Bronson Xerri from the Sharks. He's got a B sample, has been come back positive for anabolic steroids and another 3 banned substances, Brad, and he could be looking at a 4-year ban. Is that correct?
Yeah, so 4-year bans generally what the NRL gives out for this type of thing. It was just before, I think his first sample came back just after the COVID break in the middle of the beginning of the season, and he was adamant that it wasn't correct and that he'd be found to be innocent after the B sample, but that's proven to be incorrect. So 4 years is a big chunk of time, and you got to question if he'll be back after that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I know he's a pretty good talent, and he's shown some real promise, but that takes it out of you mentally more than anything as well. Having to give up, 1/3 of your probable playing career, really. I mean, if you look at players these days, besides the Cameron Smiths and a few others, I mean, you're looking at 12 to 15 year span, aren't you? And you get the odd exception that might go 17, 18. God, Cameron might play when he's 43 at this rate. Yeah. But look, let's crack into round 16, wrap up of that. Now, on Thursday night, we had the Eels getting absolutely pummeled against the Rabbitohs, one that I did not see coming, 38 points zip, Bradley.
Yeah, so the Eels went from holding the Storm scoreless last week to not being able to score a point themselves this week. I don't know what happened in the space of a week, if it's just a blip. Maybe they came in a bit too cocky after doing that to the Storm. But I guess does this performance write them off as contenders?
I don't think so. I think that they're on a bit of a downward spiral at the moment, and they are suffering at the moment. They're in the middle part of the second half of the season, if that makes sense. I just think that they've got a few things to get right. Their defense against the Rabbitohs on the edges of the ruck and around the edges definitely was very weak. The outside backs of the South Sydney Rabbitohs just carved them up. It was just pretty easy, really, for them to smack on that many points. The one opportunity that they did have disallowed was a Shepherd, and of course, Latrell Mitchell is going to be a big loss for the South Sydney Rabbitohs going forward. But in terms of the Eels, and Latrell, I mentioned him because he was part of that play, I believe. And in terms of the Eels, they've got the Warriors next, and this is a perfect picking season, I would say, or fishing season, I guess you could say, for the Warriors, because if they're ever going to beat an Eels team in 2020, after the start they had, they were 6-0 or something after the COVID break, the first one that was. So to see them now, you'd have to say this is a greatest opportunity really coming this weekend.
Yeah, definitely. I think if their edges defend like they did against the Rabbitohs, I think players like Peter Hiku and that are going to have a field day.
Definitely, but we'll cover off the Warriors a little bit later on, ladies and gentlemen. But unfortunately, yeah, like I said before, losing Latrell Mitchell for the season with a ruptured hamstring, that is going to definitely put a hamper on their chances. We'll have to wait and see. But Reynolds and Walker had fantastic game at the weekend there, Brad.
Yeah, they did. I think they're combining really well. And yeah, losing Latrell's going to be massive. But they've named Alex Johnson to go into fullback, and Dane Gaggai's returned this week. So you're losing a great player, but you've got two good players coming in. So
Gaggai comes back in. He's the guy who scored like a couple of doubles on his debut for the Queensland Maroons.
That's right, yeah.
When they were winning, that was, folks, ladies and gentlemen, a few seasons back now. And at the moment, they're on the back end of a long-term New South Wales spell. So, but hey, look, we'll move on to Friday night where we had the Dragons go up against the Titans. Bradley, you picked the Dragons in this one, and I picked the Titans, and the Titans came home with the victory.
Yeah, this game, you got the win in the predictions this week because of this game. So, the Titans have done this to me twice now because remember Cowboys Titans game, you went with Titans, I went Cowboys, got it wrong. So I've got to have more confidence in the Titans. But yeah, Jamal Fogarty, I think he was the difference in this game. He scored the match-winning try. It was almost a repeat of what happened last week, except he didn't have a Papali coming up and running after him. So I think there's been a lot of talk about Ashley Taylor and how much money he's costing the Titans when you've got Jamal probably on next to nothing with him basically leading that side now. And there was some quotes from Ashley Taylor during the week where he's actually open to taking a pay cut because he said if him getting less money gets more players to their team, it's better for the team. So I'm not always his biggest fan, but I see that his heart's in the right place and he wants the Titans to succeed. So I give him kudos for that rather than just saying, no, I want to get top dollar or I'm walking.
Well, he probably wants to play there next year as well. That's the other thing. So
yeah, definitely.
At the moment, like he's, if you ever look around, I mean, he'd probably fit into another side, but the top sides really, the top 10 sides, I guess you could say on the ladder, they've sort of got their roster sort of sorted out in terms of the halves anyway. But definitely what he's saying. Latrell, huge loss for Origin as well. Like, most definitely a magnificent loss for Origin. Thanks, Jordan. I think that would, the Blues will definitely take advantage of that. But hey, they've got backup after backup after backup, as we've seen over the years. So we'll get into that at the back end of 2020, folks. But yeah, on Friday night, we've had in our second game, we had the Roosters blowing away the Broncos 58-12. Just more misery on the Brisbane front, Brad.
Yeah, there's not really much you can say. It's kind of rinse and repeat with the Broncos every week now. I think really you could only say Katoni Staggs and David Fafita were the only highlights for the Broncos, and I still think they're a good shot at getting the wooden spoon. I still think it's going to happen. But yeah, the Roosters, for them, they didn't get out of first gear. It was just another day at the office for them, and I think they're really starting to build momentum going into the playoffs, and they've still got some big names to come back. So I believe Luke Keary's back this week. Sonny Bill, obviously, as well. And Angus Crichton and the likes, I think, are due back next week. So,
that's going to make them a threatening force in the coming weeks.
Yeah.
I think, in terms of the Roosters, the Broncos, sorry, there was some talk around getting, Kevin Walters or Green into the job now and give them the last 5 to 6 games. And I would say that it's absolute suicide, really, for a coach to sort of come in now. I think it's best just leave Peter Gentle there. for the rest of the season and let him try and get a win, maybe something, But yeah, I just think that would be a huge mistake to put in the new head coach right now, because he'll be judged on that performance as well. Poor bloke up there in Brisbane. So
definitely, and they still don't seem to know who's going to be coach. So by the time it sounds like they figure that out, I think the season's going to be over anyway. So it's a bit of a dumpster fire in Brisbane right now, and it doesn't get any easier for them this week, that's for sure.
Well, look, they're looking at a wooden spoon, ladies and gentlemen. If we move on to Saturday's fixtures, we had the Warriors in their season best performance, taking out the Newcastle Knights in a very, very solid victory, 36 points to 6, Brad.
Yeah, so yeah, as you said, their biggest win of 2020.
Their best win, I would say.
Yeah, definitely, and I think it's been coming. There's been a lot of close battles the past 6 weeks, and you see the potential the Warriors have had on attack. They just needed it to click, and it's clicked. And hopefully that's something that continues in the oncoming weeks, because they're gonna need big performances. But yeah, great game to watch.
Oh, fantastic game to watch, and you're right, they are clicking, and it's not just a couple of flukes here and there. Like, Cody and Chanel really did control the game in the halves the other day, and he's got that ball on a bit of a string at the moment, old Cody. He's goal kicking well as threading the needle through and getting some results as well. So it's really good to see that he's coming up with the try assists that are required of him. That's what he is there for, and he's starting to perhaps play some of his best football as well, and maybe with some more to come. So I think if the Warriors are going to, get better, particularly if they're going to, threaten the 8 this year, I think he has to be at the forefront of that. But also, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck playing on the fringes of the ruck, playing a bit more freely and playing like we've talked about as a second 5'8". He's also been doing really well, Brad.
Definitely, yeah. I think it was one of his better games. He didn't get as many meters as he usually did, but all the meters he got, a lot of the times he gets quite a lot of meters because he's doing the hard work, bringing the ball back. Where this time he was getting the ball in better positions, which makes him a more attacking threat. And and Peter Hiku, I think, was a close second for man of the match for me. And the Warriors needed to get him signed, and as of today, they've actually re-signed him.
That's a fantastic signing.
Yeah, so he's only signed on for a 1-year deal. But I think that's great. I think basically since his family went over to Australia, we've seen a better Hiku. He's sometimes been very rocks and diamonds, but what he sometimes lacks in defense, he makes up for in attack. It's no coincidence that regardless of the side of the field he's on, the winger outside him is the Warriors' leading try scorer. So
he got away a few good flick passes there out the side to set up quite a few tries in recent times. So no, definitely kudos on him signing for another season. I think it's a good signing. I think that he will do well. We've got our 2 big wingers potentially playing the full season next year as well. So they'll be playing on the outside of someone like him who doesn't running up the middle either. So
yeah.
Look, the Warriors still in 9th spot, and they're a chance for the 8. We'll have a look at how that goes. Their belief is growing, and they've got that kill instinct. So the Warriors run home. We'll have a look at both sides here, ladies and gentlemen, because the Knights are obviously still in the 8. But as I just wanted to mention that we do continue to talk about those teams that are just on the cusp of the 8, but we don't talk about those teams that could potentially drop out of the 8. So the Warriors run home looks like this. We've got the Eels, Sharks, Raiders, and the Sea Eagles. Now, for me, they have to win all of them purely because their points differential. Here we go. We've got the table up here. Basically, because of their points differential situation, they have to win all of them, Warriors. And I'm not necessarily banking, Brad, on the Sharks missing the 8, but potentially the Knights. I think the top 6 is done and dusted, but I reckon the Knights could drop out of the 8. I really do. And I reckon we could see ourselves taking their spot on the table. I know that sounds weird, but the way that if you look at it, like I said, we've got the Eels, Sharks, Raiders, and the Sea Eagles. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, the Warriors, like I said last week, they just need to keep winning because of their poor points differential that we see there. They don't have the luxury of ending up on the same amount of points as someone else. They have to just keep winning. The Knights, they've got the Sharks, Roosters, Dragons, Titans.
Yes.
They should beat the Dragons and the Titans. I think they might have a shot at beating the Sharks, but they won't beat the Roosters. But there's a chance they could lose Sharks and the Roosters and be in trouble.
Well, the thing is, if they just win one of their last four and we win all of our games, then we're in. You see, that's what I mean. So, I mean, that's banking on Warriors winning everything and them losing 3 games. And like you said, they've got some tough games. We'll have a look at the Sharks a little bit later on as well, folks. But yeah, at this stage, I think it's fair to say that it's still game on in many respects for the Warriors trying to make the 8. Saturday we had the Sharks versus the Cowboys. Brad, no Sean Johnson, but no worries accordingly.
Yeah, so they had their young rookie Braden Trindle take his spot due to, I think, Sean, after having the time off due to the birth of his baby girl, he's actually pulled a groin at training and is out. He's out this week as well. But yeah, Trindle had a blinder. He set up 2 tries and he almost scored 2 himself, but the bunker denied him on both. So a bit like a Paul Turner situation from the Warriors. But he showed some great qualities for a young half in a game that the Sharks should never have had a chance of losing anyway. But new halves pairing can always cause a bit of a hiccup if it doesn't work. So Warriors fans were sitting there hoping that the Cowboys would get the win and narrow that gap between 8th and 9th. But unfortunately for us, it didn't happen. But yeah, I think the moment Michael Morgan went off injured, that was it for the Cowboys. They looked a bit competitive until he went off.
Yeah, he has suffered another injury, hasn't he? Poor chap. He just came back from a long-term injury as well. So I will keep you updated on what happens with him. But yeah, I just think they definitely were going in as favourites to win this. It just would have been nice as a Warriors supporter if the Cowboys had done us a favour. But we have to wait for other results to work in our favour if the Warriors are to make the 8 this year, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, the Sharks run home. However, if we have a look at them, because the Cowboys, they are out of it. But if we look at the Sharks run home, they've got the Knights, the Warriors, the Roosters, and the Raiders. Now, those are 4 tough games, I would suggest. Starting with the Knights this weekend, the Warriors, they're going to be seen as no easy beats now. And then you've got the Roosters and the Raiders. So, again, it's a situation where, as a Warriors supporter, you're hoping that they only win a maximum of one of those, okay? And we beat them, of course, and we win all of our games.
Yeah. There's it might be a bit controversial, but I have a feeling they could quite possibly lose all 4. They got 3 out of the last 4 games. As we said, they got the Knights, Warriors, Roosters, Raiders. 3 of those 4 teams are in the top 8.
Top 8.
Sharks still have not beaten the top 8 team this year.
Exactly.
And then the only team outside of the 8 is the Warriors, who can beat. They almost beat the Panthers a few weeks ago. So
the Sharks, however, did beat us earlier in the season and slapped on 40-plus points against us. So we've got to be wary of that. Johnson will definitely be back, I would say, for that game. So, yeah, I mean, in fact, well, it's not next weekend, is it? We've got the Eels. So what am I saying? It's a couple of weeks, so he'll definitely be back. So, yeah, look, it's a great little situation to be in at the moment. And, you know, even, like I said, even though with the Knights there on 19 points, so it's definitely game on, I think, for the Warriors to still try and you know, sneak in either 7th or 8th spot, folks. But yeah, we'll have a look at another team that's on the verge. That was on the verge of the 8, but now it looks like they are disappearing fast and furiously. As the West Tigers getting thumped by the Panthers. No surprises here. Panthers running out winners 30 points to 6, and their 11th straight victory of the season.
Yeah, and it was quite a fiery encounter. Obviously, there's no love lost between these teams with the whole Ivan Cleary situation, but it was an enjoyable game. Benji, all the talk of the town at the moment due to what's happened to him, but he set up the first try for David Norfoluma off a nice little kick.
It was a good one. It was a good one. Yeah, I saw that.
And when I saw that, I was like, "Oh, they might be here," but the Panthers are just strong. They played that game without Kikau and Coruscant, and were playing like they had a full strength side. And going into playoffs, they don't really have any injuries. Coruscant should be back this week. He hasn't been named officially, but there's talks that he'll be there. And Kikau's back. And
they play the trouble that's writing on the wall for the Brisbane Broncos. It could be a bloodbath up there.
Yeah, so playing the Broncos, it's I don't know if I'd want to even show up if I was Brisbane, to be honest.
No,
Uh,
that will be interesting. Kick out and Coruscant returning.
yeah, and the Tigers, they there was talks that it was a bit of an honesty session during the week with the players and the coaches, and the players have basically told Maguire that his coaching style right now isn't working, and
Mm.
that they're on eggshells and they don't know where they're going. And with all the talks about the Tigers cleaning house, there's a few of them that are a bit nervous, and it seems to be affecting how they play. So I don't know if Maguire's just going to push through with how he coaches and just get new players in that respond better, or if he's going to adjust. Not
Well,
sure, but
he's a championship winning coach, isn't he? So he's got a methodology that has been proven that has worked. So, like, whilst he's having a few problems now with the Tigers and certain personnel over there, there are going to be situations like this where you're going to have some players that are offside. Unfortunately, when you've got a pretty straight up and abrupt type of coaching style, which he does have, you are going to rub up a few people the wrong way, as opposed to having a perhaps coaching style like Ivan Cleary, a little bit more docile and delicate, you would have to say.
yeah,
So, look, yeah, we'll just have to wait and see what happens in regards to that. I mean, like, I think he's wanting some better personnel up there as well to give him a hand. He's gotten rid of Benji, so to speak. So he will be looking to, get a good half and someone, maybe some long, some big rangy 5'8", second rowers as well. Is a little bit of lacking it for the West Tigers. Their run home, folks, they could still make the 8 mathematically, I suppose. Sea Eagles, Rabbitohs, Storm, and Eels. But I don't think that anyone is thinking that they'll make the 8, because I don't see them winning at least 3 of those 4 games.
yeah, I agree with that.
And we'll go on through Sunday's fixtures now, where we had the Storm cleaning up the Sea Eagles 30 points to 6. Sea Eagles were quite hopeful early on in the match. In fact, they scored quite a good try, and up until that point they were in the game. But then the Melbourne Storm, they just thundered through. Pardon the pun, but they just thundered through the Sea Eagles and just blew them off the park with their speed.
Yeah, Addo Carr and Justin Olam on the left edge were just having a field day, and yeah, it's another one of those teams, a bit like the Roosters, where you got some of these other teams now that are starting to build some momentum. So we've all been talking about the Panthers, and rightly so. But yeah, when you got the Roosters and the Storm starting to show some good form going into the playoffs, they're giving themselves a good shot.
Oh, the Storm will always be there or thereabouts. We know that they're a top 4 side most years, and they're a quality side at that. Cameron Smith obviously playing some of the best football of his life, so they're really thinking like they also want to send him out a winner as well, potentially. You got to remember, if it is his last season, the hype around that club will start around finals time if he's announced it by then, and if he's not playing there next year, mate, they will be big favourites heading into that final series, one would have to say. So that would be very interesting as well to see how much that plays a part. And of course, we have talked about what kind of a crowd they would have, where would they play it. So it's going to be very interesting, folks, and we'll keep you updated on all of that. But yeah, Sea Eagles run home. They, again, mathematically, I suppose there is a chance that is depending on, I mean, that's if Newcastle and the Sharks lose all of their games, and that can't happen because I believe they play each other. So they'd have to get a draw in that game, and then either the Sea Eagles or Tigers could potentially make it. That's according to my calculations anyway. So the West Tigers pulled. Oh, sorry, Bradley, you had something to say about that?
Yeah, I was just going to say the Seagulls are still, as we say every week, they're missing Tom Trbojevic, but I think their season's done now, so I think there's not really much point bringing him back this year. Like, Murphy's Law, they'll bring him back and he'll get injured and hurt himself in a freak accident or something. I think let him rest and get them ready for next year. Bringing him back and getting one win, it might be great for Southside, but think of the long game. The season's done for you. Focus on bouncing back for next year.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, that one as well, because wouldn't 4 good games at the back end of this year, don't worry about the club, but wouldn't that do him wonders going into next year as well? He's going to have a hell of a lot of expected of him next year as well, and he'd be itching to get physical, I'd suggest, and get out on the footy field. But hey, the medical staff and the coaching staff will know what to do, and they will, they will play their cards how they feel is the best way to play them.
Yeah, definitely. And the last game of the round was the Raiders defeating the Bulldogs 34-20. The Bulldogs gave the Raiders a bit of a scare in this game. But like we've seen most of this year, the Bulldogs' biggest problem is they can't play for 80 minutes and they just get run down.
Well, no, yeah, a good point that you do make there, Brad. Like, I mean, they scored 20 points against the Raiders outfit. So, hey, look, they didn't ever look like winning the game, to be honest. And, they're again basically fighting with Brisbane to get off that, take the wooden spoon, really. So they've got something to play for. But, yeah, pretty much, a result that we were expecting. And nothing more coming out of that game, really. The Bulldogs can't make the 8, so we won't even have a look at what they are doing. If they can pull off an 80-minute performance, though, they could definitely beat some of the top sides. But at the moment, they just seem like 60 minutes and then they just put out. So good luck to the Bulldogs in the rest of the tournament, but I think that we'll see a better Bulldogs come 2020. And that takes us into our picks there, Brad, or is it at this time that we're going to call in Paul to see if we've got any viewer questions?
We can do whichever one you want first.
No, we've been having most of the comments in the chat we've sort of brought up on screen, but I guess the only one, I guess, a bit of news that we didn't touch on at the top of the show is apparently that the Toronto Wolfpack have got themselves a new owner and are trying to get themselves back into Super League next year. So, will Sonny Williams be back in Canada and commuting across the Atlantic to the UK for lots of games next year or not? We'll have to wait and see how that all pans out. But that's about the only thing that we haven't talked about already in the chat.
I think isn't he over here just for these 5 games, Brad, for $100,000? Is that right? Is something like that?
I'm not sure of the amount, but yeah, he's only here for this year. But there was still the rumors with Toronto being deregistered that he essentially could tear up his contract and stay. But as they say, if they've got a new owner and they're getting re-entry back, he'll be back because he's still contracted with them. So as long as they get the okay that they're allowed back in Super League, he'll be back there next year.
I think it'll be a wise move to have them back in Super League. Hey, look, if you're wanting this game to expand, then having them there makes sense.
Yeah.
An interesting one here. John says apparently the Warriors coaching staff filling in for injuries at today's training session. Wow.
Yeah. So that was something I forgot to mention. We're hearing it a lot. It's actually something I'm really proud about with the Warriors, that every team right now is crying to the media and stuff about all the injuries they're having. The Warriors do not have enough players to register for this week. And they've got staff filling in for injuries at training to keep them going. But you're not hearing the Warriors say, woe is me, we don't have players. They would have enough players if the Eels didn't take their 2 back for this week and stop them from playing. But I
don't think they've taken them back. They're not allowed to play this week.
They just prevented them, but they had only extended the loan for 1 week last week. So they're trying to extend it a bit further, but definitely not allowed to play against their own team, which is a shame because those players wanted to play against the Eels. So
they did. That would have been a good tussle to see that going.
All you need for them is to miss one, is to fall off one tackle that leads to the match-winning try, and all sorts of questions of what was the motives and all that kind of stuff. So you understand it's for themselves.
Yeah. The last thing you want is like a runaway try to win the game for the Warriors with Jennings, and he trips over and locks the ball on, and you're like, was that an accident or is he helping his team out? I don't think either player would do that, but you don't want to put them in that situation. So I understand.
I suppose you wouldn't want to put that in that situation, but from the NRL's marketing team, from their perspective, it would be a fantastic turn of events, you'd have to say, and might generate some well-needed income in the current climate. So there's always something to be had out of events surrounding rugby league, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you for joining us here on the Standoff. We're at episode 14, season 1. And we'll have a look at our round 16 picks now. And I came out on top 7 out of 8 versus Bradley 6 out of 8. So I'm happy to say I've got one up on him and chasing him down for that minor premiership, you could say.
Yeah, you're trying to come back, so it's good to see. It's good to see some fight still left in you. So yeah, you've now got 76 out of 104, and I'm sitting on 80 out of 104. So at the end of this round, when we talk about our picks, you might be a little bit closer.
Yes,
Possibly.
because we have gone our separate ways on a number of picks this week, and we'll have a look at that. But in just a second, we'll have a look at round 17 first. And obviously on Thursday night, we've got the hapless Broncos up against the Panthers. It's a no-brainer. Panthers $1.05, Broncos $10. I think the odds could be $1 to $100, to be honest. I don't see Brisbane being able to do too much, let alone win the game.
No, there's no. You watch it will happen now, but I'll say there's no chance. No chance that they can do it. There's been better teams that have tried and have lost to the Panthers, and the Broncos can't beat anybody right now. So, yeah, easy prediction here.
Now, look, I'm obviously like the game following that. We've got the Sharkies versus the Knights on the Friday night. Not too much in this one. $1.85 plays $1.95. So you're basically on the fence with this one. But Brad, who are you going for?
I'm going with the Knights. Now, the Knights didn't play well against the Warriors, but I'm just going with the fact that the Sharks can't beat top 8 sides.
Well, this is an interesting one. I'm going with the Sharks, provided that Sean Johnson is back in the starting lineup. Are you aware if he's back?
He's not.
Oh, he's definitely not back. Okay,
he's not back. He's gone.
He's gone. Okay, so he's not there. I didn't realize that. So, but hey, look, I will stick with the Sharkies. I will stick with them because I still believe that this night side, after last week and even the week before with the injuries, there's a bit of concern. Paul Green, of course, I'm not Paul Blake Green. He's not playing anymore. So, yeah, I'll stick with the Sharks on this one. And I know that's not favourable for Warriors supporters, but I just feel that they will come across with the victory against the Knights. Because if the Knights win, it almost makes it you only got one team potentially that you can overtake in that race. Whereas I want to keep it at 2. So, I'm going for the Sharks.
Either way, it's like that because they're both the ones above us. So,
Well, we've got Friday night. We've got the Rabbitohs up against the Storm, which should be a fantastic game. Looking forward to this one. $2.60 the Rabbitohs are paying to the Storms, $1.50. It's going to be a cracker. And hey, look, if the South Sydney team, I guess, are serious contenders and they want to show their worth, a win against Melbourne couldn't go wrong at the weekend, Brad.
Yeah, definitely. But unfortunately for them, I'm going with the Storm here. I think Storm have been showing how good they've been recently, and the Rabbitohs have done it too, but I think the Storm are the better side. Just basically, without Latrell Mitchell, I think the Rabbitohs might struggle. Yeah,
I think so as well. I think the Storm, they just blew Manly off the park the other day, and they're just at Okar. I mean, there was talks of Chariots of Fire, Martin of Fire. How they were comparing the two. I think they're talking about Martin of Fire having 10 tries at pace on the wing, at a certain pace, and at Okar, he must be up there with him. But so I think the Storm definitely it'll be a great game. I don't think it'll be a lot in it, but I'll still back the Storm in to take that one out. On Saturday night, Saturday's fixtures, we've got the Bulldogs versus the Titans. Interesting, $1.95 plays $1.85. I'm backing in the Titans to win this one.
Yeah, I am too, because every time I go against them, I get screwed. So
now, I bet you now that you've picked them, they'll probably lose at the weekend. You'll cost us each a pick.
But yeah, I think the Titans are showing a bit more until we can see an 80 performance out of the Bulldogs. I think they're still going to have the loss, but if they win here, they get off the bottom, and we've got a first ever wooden spoon for the Broncos.
Yeah, cool. I think that would be. Well, it would be a shame for the Brisbane Broncos, to be fair. But after the season they've had, it may be that they are deserving of that position. On Saturday, we've also got the Manly Sea Eagles versus the West Tigers. Interesting one, this one. Manly paying $1.60 to the West Tigers, $2.35. And it's at Lottoland, so it will be interesting to see who comes away with it. I'm backing in the West Tigers on this one purely because of the fact that, look, the word about Benji is out. I'm hoping that for the rest of the season they play for him, and he also plays for him as well. So I'll back them in against Manly here at the weekend.
Yeah, I have the same mentality. I think the Tigers are the better outfit. Harry Grant's out there. Benji has a point to prove now. If he does want to continue on next year, he's going to have to get a gig somewhere else. So he's going to need to perform.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think they've got it there.
That leads us into the Saturday game of the round, the Saturday's main event, I guess you could say. It will be the Raiders versus the Roosters. And I was I was on the fence about this one, but I've decided to go the Roosters with this one purely because Carey's back and Sonny Bill Williams coming off the bench. I'm really interested to see how he'll go. $1.50 plays $2.60 though, Brad.
Yeah, I'm going with the Roosters as well. Rematch of the grand final from last year, obviously, and should be match of the round. But yeah, I think Sonny Bill and all that, and the form, the Raiders, they never looked like losing really against the Bulldogs, but they looked a bit patchy. If they start slow like they did against the Bulldogs, the game will be over by halftime.
Well, it should be a good one because I think the Raiders upset the Roosters earlier this year. If you can correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure that they did.
Yeah.
Might want to just check on that one, but I'm pretty confident that it will be a definitely one of the games of the round for mine, and looking forward to seeing that. On Sunday we take the Warriors take on the Eels in a must-win encounter for the Warriors. Also, that's definitely going to be an interesting one in terms of how they end up this year.
Yeah, so I just checked. Raiders bet the Roosters in round 10, 24-20.
Great, fantastic. Thanks for that one, Brad.
But yeah, so Warriors Eels. I've picked the Eels. The Eels should win this game. They're up towards the top of the ladder, but that's with my head. My heart's saying the Warriors are going to walk away with a win here. But yeah, I'm going with the Eels.
So you're saying the Warriors' season is effectively over. That's what you're saying. Potentially, that's what's happening at the weekend for you.
Potentially, yeah. I don't want to hear that. I don't want that to be the result. I'd rather lose this pick. But yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, you could be right. I have the same sort of mentality. I've backed in the Warriors purely as a person who's pretty free with his picks, to be fair. Doesn't calculate them too much and just goes off the whim. And to be only a couple of percent behind, that's a pretty good effort, I would have thought. So, no, the Warriors, I'm backing them in. Look, I think that if my sort of thought process is that if they are going to make the 8, this is the game they have to win to make it. Yes, other teams still have to lose games, but if they beat the Eels, then I'll give them a chance of making the 8. So I'll go off the Warriors.
Definitely. And full disclosure, I actually put money down on Monday for the Warriors to make the 8. So I'm backing them that way, but not this week.
I think that technically, if they did lose this weekend, I think they can still make the 8. But it would mean a lot of results have to be failures for the Sharks and the Knights.
Yeah, and then that leads us to the last game of the round, which is the Cowboys paying $2.45 against the Dragons paying $1.55. I've gone with the Dragons. I think the Cowboys, they've got no Michael Morgan. I think it's going to be a bit too much for them.
Yeah, I'll go with the Dragons as well. Hunt playing well at number 9. Their season's all over. McGregor's gone. They're going to start for next year, but I just think that even though North Queensland are in the same path, I think that the Dragons will be too strong for them. So that wraps up round 17, folks, coming to you this Thursday, and we will cover it off in next week's episode 15 of the standoff. So with our picks there, like we've said, we've got a few different picks there. I think we've got 3 different picks, or just two different picks. Okay, so
the Sharks, Knights, and the Warriors Eels.
Sharks, Knights, and the Warriors Eels, and you could be coming away with an 8 out of 8 if the Knights and the Eels both win. Actually, that's a interesting cross the 2 games, isn't it? The Knights and the Sharks, and the Warriors and the Eels. You could almost go for any of the 4 teams. It's interesting. I bet if we are getting one of each, I'm hoping it's the Warriors coming up over the Eels. Let's put it that way.
Me too.
Okay, fantastic. Hey, look, in overseas news, news from the Super League up there in the United Kingdom. We're going to have defeated Castleford 30-22 to remain at the top of the ladder, Brad.
Yeah, so it's good to see my team up there is still doing well. So they've had some great form since they've come back. We don't really have too much news from Super League. There was David Fafita, not the Broncos one, Andrew's brother. He's been stood down for the foreseeable future for refusing to wear a GPS tracking device. They're using it for track and tracing for COVID, and he refused to wear it, so he's being told he's not allowed to play.
Fair enough. Well, if you don't want to follow the rules, we're paying the big bucks. You can have a few weeks off, Mr. Fafita. In the women's game, the Australian Jillaroos coach has been named the Warriors women's team head coach for 2020.
Yeah, so it's good to actually have some women news. We've been a bit quiet on that, unfortunately. But yeah, so the Warriors' actual women's coach cannot get into the country in Australia, so he can't do his job. So the Warriors did a bit of ringing around and managed to get Brad Donald, who is, the Jillaroos coach, won the 2017 World Cup. And he's taken the job on just for this year. It's not a long-term thing. It's I'm coming in, we'll coach for this year. It's still going to be a hybrid team, mostly of New South Wales and Queensland players because of the whole situation. I believe there's 6 players from the Warriors from New Zealand that are going to head across. But due to COVID and a lot of players decided they wanted to stay home with their families. And be interesting. It's kind of it's a bit like a larger version of what the Warriors have been doing with the loan players. They're basically having a loan team. So it'd be interesting to see how it goes.
Yeah, we'll keep you updated on when that is about to kick off, and we'll give you all the results and feedback from those games as well. So, hey, but look, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. That brings our show to an end here on Wednesday. Like I said, thanks for joining us. It's been a fantastic show. We've learned a lot about what's happened in rugby league in 2020, and we'll cover off more of that next week. And as we embark on the final series, Brad, the rugby league is getting more and more exciting. And so if you want to get that information, you can tune into our podcast as well.
Yeah, so just remember for your weekly update on rugby league to tune into our podcast on iHeartRadio or Facebook. Just remember to search for New Zealand Sport Radio.
Otherwise, you'll catch us next week here, same place, same time, 8 p.m. on Wednesday evening. Thank you and good evening.
Good evening, guys.